Okay, hey.
Can you hear me?
Mhm,
Okay. So we're talking about Death is Stupid.
mhm.
And for anyone who's listening, no matter what their connection to the recording is, we're talking about the idea that there are different ways to present death to children. And there are a multitude of books available for them. So, why am I suggesting that this is the book we should use? And in doing that, that is very connected to the children's book Death is Stupid. It's for me, it feels the same, and why I want us to use Death is Stupid. Um, so here's what Tom Robbins says about death. Death is impatient and thoughtless. It barges into your room when you're right in the middle of something, and it does not bother to wipe its boots.
My gosh.
Death is stupid. Like for me, that's the grown-up version.
Yeah, but it's also the kids' version.
Yes.
That could have been like on page 1 before everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because when I read Death is Stupid, I did not have that quote. I found that quote later. So I created the card sort of as my way of responding to Death is Stupid, to be able to say to people maybe something different than, the many things that are said. Maybe,
Yeah.
and what I always write when I send that card is basically something about what I got from your book. I mean, it's, and sometimes and on a very few occasions for very special people, I've sent your book with it, so that it's my way of saying, here's something else about death. So your thoughts in response to that, in terms of how other books and other stories, other ways of communicating about death with children.
Yes, my sense is that my experience of several other books about death for children, that I find, like, aesthetically they might be beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't feel moved by them at all.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think what it feels like the book is trying to do is make sense of death
Mm.
and make it acceptable,
Mm.
make it tolerable, like medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't crave that when I am in mourning.
Right.
Um, so, and when I am comforting someone, I don't.
Right.
I want to listen for that in my own voice, in my own tone, in my own mannerisms or my offerings,
Mm.
and stop it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not useful. It's not even what the question was. In terms, even if a child doesn't ask a question, the question wasn't make it make sense.
Right.
And I think that adults try to make it make sense because they're afraid of what chaos,
Mm-hmm.
emotional chaos happens when there is no good reason. It's just what happens. And the fact that it's just what happens is not, doesn't need to be put flowers all around it. And they're literally, we put flowers all around it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're going to send flowers? Yeah, I'm going to send flowers. And not that flowers aren't beautiful. I love the flowers
Right.
that are all over. Yeah. Put flowers all over Death is Stupid, but it's it's not to cover up the stink of it.
Mhm.
It's just because flowers are beautiful and they're alive, you know, um, and they die. And, but it's not,
Yeah.
but the metaphors are not helpful. Or they're only helpful to a certain point. And that quote about the muddy boots and what do you mean they're dead? Like, think of how many times you've heard that someone died. Someone tells you, so and so died.
Mhm.
I just got off the phone. I just got out of the hospital. And you go, what do you mean they died? Who? And you say, like,
Mhm.
you say their name back to them, like, you can't be serious. There must be a mistake. Like, how many times it takes to even
Mhm.
comprehend
Yeah,
that someone could be
gone.
gone,
Yeah,
gone. And
gone.
there are people
Yes.
who see, people who at the bedside of someone see someone with a little bit of light in their eyes one moment, and then it's gone.
Yes.
And they see it go, and it's like,
Yeah.
um and so the books for children, I think, are insulting
Mhm.
to the fullness of their feeling and being connected to whoever the beloved was. And sometimes they aren't connected to who the beloved was, and that's a different thing. But the book, addresses that by having the child then focused on the bereaved parent.
Right.
Because sometimes it can be that. It's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
The structures are falling down around my people who I depend on. But so Death is Stupid is specific. It offers this just day in the life of going to a funeral and hear those things. But also I feel like it intentionally calls forward the memories of what was it like the first time you went to a funeral, or someone died,
Yes.
or what was it like for you when your parent's parent died? How did they take it? How did that affect you?
Mhm.
What did they tell you? What was useful? What do you wish you had known?
Right.
You only get to hear in a dream.
Yes.
Do you recall that dream? And does it give you solace even now? And then the activities which draw out the actual, what did
Right.
they make? What did they do? What did they do with you? What did they read? What did they wear? Is there any parts of that you can relate to and be in living relationship with now?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that the 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 hugeness, the s- the sheer magnitude of something being someone being there and then not accessible. And something that I've seen happen with children who either have siblings or parents that die. For example, they've oftentimes watched them deteriorate first and then they die. Like they've had cancer or they've had some other kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and so they've not been present for them in the same way
Mm-hmm.
over time. And that's another example of, there's a lot of books for children out there about that, about someone who's dying and has died, that you've gone through that as a child, you've experienced the whole beginning to end, where someone's availability to you looked different because of an illness, and then they were gone. And I think that those books capture the longevity of the experience, and they try to make meaning out of it and be comforting and reassuring, without acknowledging death is stupid. So I think my question is for all of us is, can you actually process that kind of loss, and then the collective loss we all feel around all the deaths because of COVID, or all the deaths because of, different forms of violence that we see. Can you actually process those and do anything with them if you've not first acknowledged, this is stupid?
And that it's
It's
not the way
stupid that
you
it's
want it.
stupid that things die. That's stupid. Why don't I think
Yeah.
that is, it sounds so simple, but it's so profound. And there's been so much that's been brought into the experience of being human and trying to seek an answer for it, instead of just acknowledging it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense.
It's unknowable, it's uncertain, it scares me because
Yeah.
it could happen to me. I'm
Right.
8 years old, it could happen.
And stop making up stories that involve, especially religion. I mean, we haven't even touched on that. All the mythology of religions that addresses this question of the purpose of life. Well, if death is stupid, then we have to find some reason to justify life's meaning. So,
Or invent an afterlife.
and then we start inventing. Yeah, exactly. Or
And maybe
invent.
there is one, I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
not wings and freaking white dresses.
It's definitely not. There's no part of me that would accept that it's in any way punitive about what you do when you're alive.
There's that too. I mean, the fear of hell. I just,
Yes. So there's also this question of that, the meaning, that when you start acknowledging death is stupid, then what does that mean about life? How do you find purpose if you don't understand what death is or what happens next? If your whole reason for life is to cash out in the afterlife, it's
and that
anyway. I don't know. I have so many questions.
I love that question, but see, it's fun. It's not comfortable, but it's interesting to have these conversations with children.
Agree.
But I don't know what they're going to say. Like, I wrote Death is Stupid with my eldest son, who is now 17, but was obsessed with death. Every time it got dark, every single night, I'm scared of death. And he needed me to sit with him, and I didn't know what to say.
Wow.
I just knew that he was scared of death, and he was scared of what it would feel like.
Yeah.
He was scared of not being able to move in his body.
Right.
But his mind would be awake.
Right.
Not move. He was scared of being spirit. That was not reassuring to him, of taking a spirit form. I mean, that was really, but my book didn't solve any of that. But I did ask him questions along the way.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of kids feel that, but they can't articulate it that well for various reasons. So it's really helpful that he was able to articulate those thoughts.
Yes, because it's like, I know you're scared of death.
Yeah.
Can you feel that you are alive right now? Can that be enough?
Right.
And sometimes it couldn't, and so we had to do other things. I mean, it was just like, what can we do right now? Can we listen to a song? Can we draw pictures? Can we just write the alphabet?
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Whatever.
What?
Because
wait, I can't solve this.
Right. Yes. So as you evolved through that as a mother, where have you landed now with it on his behalf?
He still talks about it sometimes. And he's very philosophical. He continues to be very philosophical, but very rooted in, like, I cooked my lunch today and it was delicious. Can I tell you how wonderful this was? And I'll make it for you sometime. Like those kinds of things. And when he'll say something about one of, like he needs to be grounded in the daily stuff. He finds a lot of, like it helps.
Yeah.
Just to be mindful, I guess, in the activities of his day and his living and the quality of his life. So he invests in that, and I help him to do that. And when he gets scared or just be with it.
Yeah.
Use.
Yeah. So as a mother, you just enter into it and stay there with him.
Yeah, it's abiding. It's
Yeah.
abiding.
And you're just there. And sometimes, like, to me, that's there are many people who really gravitate to that picture of the grandparent hugging the child.
The parent.
The
Yeah.
image. Yeah, that image of, and I think that's something that sometimes other people play that role when the parent cannot.
Right.
Or does not, for whatever reason. So there's also that listening to you talk about as a mother, you were able to be that. And for those parents or guardians or whomever that cannot, there has to be the village that can.
Has to be the village, and there has to be permission for it to just be a thing that moves through also quickly, where the child is like upset, and then wants to go outside and play.
Right.
And go. You can play. You're allowed to go have fun. It can come and go. Like, and
It comes and goes. Yes.
That's also, bear witness to anybody's grief. It's like it comes and goes. Like,
yes.
You didn't cry at the funeral? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't either. I cried later when 3 days later in the grocery store, this song came on.
Right.
And I started bawling in the grocery store, whatever. Yeah, and then your kid hears you say that, and they're like, that can happen? That's,
yes.
As long as we're not, collapsing as a parent.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
There's vulnerability,
yes.
and
right.
then it's collapsing, and it doesn't have no good to see us collapse.
Right. And that's why I, long for places like the Gilda's clubs, where they have, they work with cancer, to use your book. My hope is there's one right up the road from here that I'm thinking I may just stop by there and see, because I think that's a village for many children. Those Gilda's clubs. Are you familiar with those? Gilda Radner's. So, there's a whole network of social workers and people who only work with this particular realm of life that are the village. And, children go back to school after there's a death in the family, and there's the village. And how do the other children, how are they prepared to receive that? Also, there's also the other children.
Right, and being the other children, like
yes,
reading that book, not when your grandmother died, but just reading it.
But knowing it already, yes.
So that when your friend experiences a death, you get to beside them and not say, "Oh,
right,
that sucks." Anyway, like you can actually have some presence and some.
So that brings me to this conversation of, yes, this is a book in response to a death, and that's one thing. But here's the other side of that, and that's that part of this realm of, inventing things to explain it, maybe is because it's not only, it's only talked about when it happens. So what about this book is just, you read it like you read any other book in your childhood. It's something that is a part of conversation.
Right.
that happens all the time,
Right.
not in response to
Right.
an event. I think for me, that's the big shift in the village that has to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great if it happened in homes and all of that, and it wasn't brought out only when somebody did die.
Yeah.
But the village can be the place where it's always part of the conversation.
Right. Right. The classroom.
Yes. The book is just there. It's just happening. The conversation's happening. We're studying it ourselves because it's something that's just there.
And the adults pick up the book too, because it's no
Yes.
more easy for adults.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because the only time I ever had a conversation about death with anybody was when somebody died. Not all the time. The only other conversations I had about death was when I was told what would happen to me when I died if I didn't do life right.
Right. Right.
So you explain away death by focusing on you better do this when you're alive so your death isn't fucked. So you're not fucked when you die, basically. It's just like, and with no malice towards anybody who has a faith-based life. I have no issues around that at all. However, if your only discussions about life and its meaning and death and its meaning are connected to judging yourself and others judging you, I mean, we've got to broaden the conversation to, can we just acknowledge that this just makes no sense? It's just ridiculous.
And it's so much more, whether the people in their family are dying or not, or the animals
Exactly.
that are beloved to
Yeah.
them, or their friends.
Right.
Death is like, so you read a children's book like Martin's Big Words,
Yeah.
right? Is that the
Yes.
name of the book?
Yes, I know the book you mean.
And he dies at the end. I mean,
Right. Right.
when I heard that book read to, my child is so small, they're in my lap,
Yeah.
and this book is being read to us. I was like, how is she going to do this? She's reading the book, and I'm like, how is she going to handle the assassination? Like, I know where this story is going. And I mean, it's obviously I have to write these books because those kinds of moments are like a bottleneck of pressure for me. Like it has to, something has to give, something has to happen there. But like,
you had not written this Death is Stupid yet, correct? At that point?
No, I had.
You had, okay.
I had, and I was just fascinated. I was like, how are we going to handle this? I don't know how we're going to handle this. We just fell in love with this man, all these children.
Yeah.
You described him, and we fell in love with him, and now he's going to die. And we're going to soften the blow. But, and I experienced it as a child with the story of Jesus Christ.
Oh.
I was like, what do you mean they nailed him to are you like that just
right.
I got stuck there. I was like, can we talk about this? But I mean, I wasn't, of course, like, can we talk about this? But my mind was just
your
like,
head. Yeah.
And it was it was devastating. And anyway, I don't even know what I want to say about that, except that to override those moments, I'm just curious about how we handle those moments. And all I can be is curious, because it's like, and people I've heard beautiful storytelling about, there's a story I heard once about a man talking to his daughter about Martin Luther King, and them processing that assassination together. And then her learning afterward about Jesus Christ, the story of Jesus Christ as a radical rebel teacher, the people.
Right.
And she said, did they kill him too? You know, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that's the whole, it's on the pendants, it's on the walls, it's on, as if it's right, you know, and so that's very confusing.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
deaths are big deaths, and they're very confusing the way they're handled. And the one more thing I want to say is that, like all of the titles in the Ordinary Terrible Things series, all of the starting points are the stuck points. And then, so, you know, the takeaway from Death is Stupid is not only that death is stupid and we're just going to be grumpy about it.
Yeah.
You know, the child goes through a lot of different,
Yes.
goes, you know, really moves through a lot of different feelings about it. And to come to where they're able to choose a different word there and acknowledge that it's scary.
Yeah.
To not know when you're going to die or when anybody is going to die, but to know that we all are.
Yeah.
That's scary. Can we just agree on that?
Yeah.
And then to be able to, you know, to show the child able to be in their life and enrich, you know, and keep those connections to the ones that are living and the ones that are dead.
Yeah.
And so the starting at the stuck place allows for that kind of more gentle untangling and unknotting.
Yeah, I like that image of starting at the stuck place and then gently unraveling. Yeah, and I think that I think the stuck place is somewhat universal. And that's why I say, you know, you bring this book out all the time, not just in response to somebody dying. You know, that there's this knot inside of living, maybe, that causes us to wonder, what is this?
Right.
You know, and it brings to mind this, I don't know if I've already shared this, so I apologize if I haven't. Stop me if I have, because there's no point in saying it again. But a real teaching for me that happened a couple of years ago. My grandson was 4 at the time, I think, and their dog died. A dog that had been alive for all of his life. So he'd not known life without the dog. Came home from preschool and is told the dog died. And so I see him a couple of days later and he said, "Sadie died, Grandma." I said, "Yeah, I was actually going to talk to you about that and ask you about that. I knew Sadie really well even before you were born." And he said, "I know, but what happened?" And I said, "Well, she died. I'm not sure I know what you mean. Do you mean what happened to make her die?" And he said, "Everybody just told me that Mommy came home and found her on the floor and she wasn't breathing and so she was dead. But I don't know what happened." And I thought that was so poignant because I think most people would listen to everything he said and say, well, that is what happened, right? You know, but for him, that was not the story. That was not what happened. And so we just kept going and unraveling, just like you said, like there was the stuck place. Everybody keeps telling me this is what happened, but I still don't know what happened. I think that, like, for me, that's the stuck place, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, and so the unraveling for him continues years later.
Yeah.
He will still talk about, you know, Grandma, Sadie died. I said, yeah, I do know that. We're not going to see her anymore. No, we're not. Where's her body? You know, like it's years later and still like, what's happening here?
Right.
You know?
Right. And it's so, health.
So I love that you put it that way. Where do we start with this?
Right.
And then the unraveling can happen.
Yeah. And Death is Stupid is meant to, like Divorce is the Worst.
Yeah.
And like Tell Me About Sex, Grandma, it's meant to warrant, it's meant to elicit a little bit of a chuckle, a little bit of a relaxing,
Mhm.
just looking at the cover.
Yes. Yes.
A little bit of a,
Yes.
you're not supposed to say that.
Right.
And then, and just, you know, just to open a little bit, a crack
Yes.
in the armor, in the necessary armor,
Right.
or the shell, or the,
Right. Right.
or the lies, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that we can, you know, be curious about more.
Yeah. And my favorite part that made me smile was when, you know, Death is Stupid, and don't say stupid. You know, I just burst out laughing. I was like, thank you. Thank you, Anastasia. I didn't know you then. I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And don't say stupid.
Don't be stupid.
Yeah, it was, you know, and I think, yeah, there is, I don't know that there's a llama that my husband met in college who told him enlightenment is the perfection of the sense of humor.
Oh,
And you know, that comes to mind when I hear you say that about humor around this,
yeah.
you know, and one of his aunts, when he had an uncle who he loved, and when he died, his Aunt Anne would continue to send him birthday cards from Fred in like squiggly line writing, like his ghost was sending cards. And we used to say, Aunt Anne gets it, you know, enlightenment is the perfection of the sense of humor.
What
You know,
can we do with this? We might as well. Yeah.
yeah. It was, and she was using his name. She was keeping him in. She's keeping him with us. Yes.
Yeah. People need to laugh and
Yeah.
okay.
I like that that's come up, you know, because it is part of the title, I think, like you said.
Yeah. Even Grandma thinks it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is ridiculous, right?
Look at my garden down there.
Right. What are you doing? Oh, well, maybe this is a good place to
Sure.
move on, and, you know,
Okay.
yeah. So thank you,
My pleasure so much.
as always.
so
Yeah. And as far as everything else goes, I will, of course, be in touch about
Okay.
next week's conversation.
Wonderful.
All
Wonderful.
right.
Okay, and I'll be sending you things this week.
Yay.
You've been so patient. Okay.
Oh, no. It's good. It's all
Okay.
good.
Good.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Hello to Hans.
Okay.